Hey, it's Freitag. In this podcast, we interview business owners in New Hampshire and beyond to get their perspective on work, growth, and of course, the weekend. Join our host, Freitag marketing owner Jan Ziegler, as he interviews fascinating guests. We hope you'll enjoy this episode.
Hello, welcome to It's Freitag. Today I'm here with Jill Exel. Jill's a good friend and she's a realtor and is going to tell us today a little bit about the real estate market, what it takes to become a realtor, and also what a good weekend looks like for her. So welcome, Jill.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and how you came to the Monadnock region. I actually do not know if you grew up around here or if you moved here later.
It's a short story. I grew up in Swansea, born and raised right in Keene, and I've basically lived here all of my life. I did first couple of years of college go to UNH and lived out by the coast, but otherwise it's a great area, and my husband and I decided to stay local and raise our family here.
So you never moved away for any longer period of time?
I didn't. We love to travel and explore the world, but I am embedded in this region.
That's incredible. Like, you're, I think, the first one that I've had here on the podcast who's grown up here and never left. Because I've interviewed a couple of people, like Brad, who grew up here and then moved away and came back. But that's interesting. So what did you start your career out doing long before you became a realtor?
Yeah, good question. So my background, my degree is in graphic design. And so my background is both the design and marketing between freelance clients, an ad agency that used to be in town called Church and Main. I did illustration work for them while I was in college, and then they hired me on immediately upon graduation. And that was an amazing experience. I would have stayed with them, but something called the World Wide Web was kind of becoming popular, and I wanted to learn more about web design and coding. And there was a marketing position open at the Mass Yellow Group at that point, which used to be ERA, the Mass Yellow Group back in the day. And I took that position. I was their marketing department solely by myself for quite a while, did all of the design work for their real estate, their title, and their insurance, and got them through conversions to independent and then to now part of the Better Homes and Gardens real estate franchise. And then I became a realtor.
So you really should be working here. But apart from that, so you then obviously worked in a real estate office doing all the marketing. When did the switch happen, and why did the switch happen from, doing their marketing and their graphics to becoming a realtor yourself? Yeah,
so it wasn't necessarily anything that I intended originally. So my husband and I started to have a family, and I still worked in the marketing department for Mass Yellow when my firstborn came into this world. And I was doing part-time at that point. And then we had our youngest son, and Chris Masiello asked if I would come back full-time, which I would have, but I view my kids as they're only young once, and I don't want to miss that time with them. And so respectfully kind of said, I understand that you need somebody full-time, and so I'm kind of going to go do my own thing now. And because I had the relationship with so many of the agents in our office, I did some freelance work for a couple of the realtors. And while I was, I actually started doing marketing for a self-published author who was pretty world-renowned and got to go to trade shows for her and stuff while staying home to do that. So it was fantastic. And as that author got ready to retire and sell her company, one of the agents who I was working with said, if you got your real estate license, you would be allowed to do so much more within the marketing realm, and we could see what that would look like. And so that little seed was planted, and it just evolved from there.
That's really cool. So you then basically out of necessity, like out of transition into, well, not necessity, but like just seeing that opportunity. It wasn't like a conscious decision. I've seen all these agents do their work. Now I want to be one of them. It was more like you just took the opportunity when it presented
as I
itself.
did more of the marketing and was kind of more, because everybody has an idea of what a realtor is and what it is that a typical day looks like, but then you find out very quickly that your assumptions are completely wrong. And so as I got more and more involved with that, and seeing what it was and, hey, I actually enjoy this, then it kind of evolved into something that I, to this day, absolutely love.
And so walk me quickly through the past, how many years?
This is my 10th year that I just started January 3rd.
Okay, so walk me through 10 years of being a real estate agent.
So to be very honest with you, when you first get licensed, the licensing course that you have to go through before you take your exam to then say, okay, I'm a card-carrying realtor, the course itself very much teaches you how to pass the exam, not how to day-to-day represent clients and even to write up contracts and all of that actual business that you need to do. And so when I first became licensed, I realized very quickly that, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit of a fake it till you make it industry. And that didn't work for me. I like to know what I need to know before I need to know it, if at all possible, recognizing that every transaction is different and I'm learning something daily as well. And so upon that realization, I actually sought out another agent in my office who is fantastic. Her name's Pat Paquette. She had been in real estate as one of the top producers for at least 30 years at that point. And we formed probably the first team in this Monadnock region. And we were a team together for a solid 3 years. We did every deal together, every phone conversation, reviewing of inspection reports, negotiations, and the training and education that brought me was invaluable. And, we still work closely. Our desks are still side by side, but it turned into the volume of things we kind of needed to handle on our own.
So the interesting thing with real estate and licensing is that the license is really only the beginning of your education, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not any other degree where maybe, hopefully you kind of sort of know what you're doing by the time you graduate from, any kind of degree, but you get your license and then you really have no clue what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, that's exactly it. And I do wish a lot of things were different in our industry, and that being the biggest one, because this is the biggest investment people are going to make. And you really need somebody who is going to represent you either as a buyer or as a seller and knows what that actually looks like and what that means. And, we are required to renew our license every 2 years. And so you have minimal education standards to do that. There are 2 required classes and then electives beyond that. And I wish there were more requirements. I wish that having a mentor, like a true mentor, was mandatory for at least 6 months or at least 12 transactions or something. I really wish there were stricter criteria on that for the protection of our clients.
So is it really, whenever a real estate agent gets their license, they didn't hang it with a brokerage, right? Mm-hmm. They pick whichever one they like the best. And is it then really on the brokerage to train that agent, or is it kind of the agent's responsibility to find the resources that they want, like a mentor or, more help on their own? Because I feel like we live in an area where there's, everywhere in the US, there's an abundance of realtor, right? And whenever we get a big boom in real estate like we had during COVID, even more people become realtors because, on the face of it, it seems like the checks are big and it's good money because, on a like the commission check on a $700,000 house might be a $30,000 check, and then that gets split a few ways. But in the end, you make good money per transaction when you know what you're doing, which I think leads a lot of people into the job without really knowing what they're getting into.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're 100% right. When things go crazy and houses are flying off the shelf, so to speak, you see a lot of people get their license. And again, that license is good for 2 years. So then after that 2-year period, you see many that do not renew because on the surface, it looks like, oh, I could do that. There's not necessarily much involved. It's easy. And once somebody gets licensed and they're actually trying to represent somebody or even get a client, they realize very quickly that their assumptions are very wrong. And so to answer the question about who the responsibility lies on, whether it be the individual or the brokerage that they choose, it's both. So each brokerage is going to offer different things. Some are more of an online presence and all their training is online. They don't necessarily have a brick and mortar building. Some do offer that brick and mortar building where anytime you need a question answered, you can find somebody in there. Each agency I have found is going to offer some level of mentorship at that first meeting. But the follow through is really not always there. And sometimes a mentor can look like, oh, this is your mentor. So if you run into questions, ask them, rather than, hey, do you want to come on a listing appointment with me and then an inspection and then read through this report and see what we should ask for, et cetera, like the real nitty gritty pieces of it. So it's unfortunate that sometimes what is offered is not always followed through with.
So how does one get started, right? Like, I'm going to be like, hey, I just got my license. I'm really excited. I want to sell houses. Because I would think you, as, a seasoned, experienced realtor, you're also not all that terribly excited about sharing your knowledge with and breeding the competition, right? I mean, there's some guarding of books and maybe not necessarily techniques, but I think a lot of the realtors' value also comes in the relationships that you have, right? With lenders, with inspectors, with title companies, that you can get stuff moving faster than somebody else who's just starting out and who doesn't really know anybody. Is it hard to find that mentor in the real estate industry?
I think it can be. It goes back to really interviewing not only the brokerage, but then also one of the questions would be, okay, who are my options for a mentor? And then interviewing those various people. Because, yeah, I see what you're saying about the hesitation of thinking that there's going to be toes to be stepped on. But from my perspective, if somebody is actually committed, they're going to be full-time and not have something else that's going to take away their focus, and they're really going to work and hustle and continue to get as much education as they can for themselves, then I will help answer questions and train them all day long. I might not show them my marketing materials, of course, but this is how we do this. Why don't you come to this appointment with me? And I have in the past. But there are some people that are more guarded, but my view of it is that if you do better at representing your clients, then we all do better, especially if you and I have a transaction together, then things are going to go as smoothly as they can. There's always something that comes up, a title issue here or a whatever there. But, the better that our industry is trained and the better that we all represent our clients, the better we all do in the end.
Okay. And so switching gears a little bit, going into like the real estate market here, Cheshire County, the Monadnock region, what are you seeing? We're at the beginning of the year, it's January. When you're looking at, the rest of the year, and I'm sure you have like the spring markets around the corner, people are going to, go crazy buying and selling. And we don't know what the rates are going to do and how much they're going to drop and what that all means. And obviously it's not a secret. Supply here is super short.
Yeah, correct.
What should people anticipate? What should they do or not do? Like, is the advice to not do anything unless you really have to? Like, What would you say?
Yeah, so the advice is not the same across the board necessarily. The one piece that is never changing is that if you're looking to buy or sell within the next year, start a conversation with, if you already have an agent, your agent, or if you don't, interview a few of them and have a conversation and say, don't disclose anything too confidential that would hurt your negotiation moving forward and play your hand, so to speak. But you can tell a little bit about, these are my circumstances, this is my goal, and how do you think I can best achieve this and get there. The rates are historically not bad, but we were spoiled for a very long time with the low rates, and it's kind of trapping people because they're more than double what they've locked into, and so a monthly payment looks very different to them. And if they do drop just a little bit, which we of course don't know, nor do we really project that they're going to quickly here, I think that people will venture out a little bit more. But for right now, inventory is low and it's going to remain low. Prices are still year over year higher, and economic projections are that they're going to continue to increase this year as well. We are starting to see an increase on days on market with some of the properties, so they're taking a little bit longer to sell if they need work. As we get every day away from the holidays, that activity is picking up more and more for buyers, certainly.
So are there any, I think obviously in Cheshire County we have some towns that are very, very expensive and they're very, Walpole, Chesterfield. And then we have others, Hinsdale, Winchester, where housing is a little bit more affordable. Is there any emerging area that you'd say, oh, this is a lot of people are moving there now, which I haven't seen before, or, it's not really gentrification around here, but is there a popular town or area where people move to right now?
I'm not seeing necessarily one that's become more popular than it has been recently. It's this is where the inventory is, and if this works for you, then that's where you're moving. And each town has a different availability of, Keene doesn't even have a 1 month supply of inventory right now versus Swansea has about almost a month and a half until those go under contract, and that changes. But every town in Cheshire County certainly has a draw. Are you looking for something more rural? Are you looking for services? Are you looking for a good school? Are you looking for proximity to Massachusetts? So those are all things that at a first meeting with a buyer, and as you're continuing to work with them, you need to talk with them through, here are things that might work for you based on your needs, and here are probably the towns that make sense, but let me know what else you're interested in.
Okay. And then what, how do I pick a realtor? This is a very interesting question, because I actually the other day in a Facebook group saw somebody asking for hey, I'm going to move to Keene, or I don't remember what it was, and I would like to find a realtor to help me find a house. Now, where do you even start? Because there's 3,000 comments of everybody and their cousin saying, I know one, and it's probably their cousin. That doesn't give you a reputable answer. Where do I start if I'm new to the area and I have no idea who I need?
Yeah. So another great question. You and I had this conversation briefly the other day, that one good starting point is talking with local lenders too and seeing who they recommend, because they're who you're getting financed through, and they know people that get you to the closing table. You can also look at reviews online, like a realtor.com or Google profiles and things like that, and see what previous clients had to say about working with these people, and do people have reviews? Have they sold anything? Again, not to beat the same drum, but interview agents. You don't have to just call one and say, okay, you know what you're talking about based on this conversation, because they might sound like they do. But as you talk to more and interview more, here's what I'm going to offer you. Maybe this person communicates better. Maybe they have more experience. Maybe the other one you were going to go with is not full-time and therefore can't deal with issues in a timely manner. So that interview process is really, in my opinion, critical.
So is a good question to ask, how many transactions have you done in the last 12 months? Like something like that, where you're like, okay, well, if you do 20, you probably know what you're doing. If you do 2, maybe you don't.
Yeah. And that can vary. You have some of these agents who are on the cusp of retiring, so they've intentionally started to slow down a little bit. It doesn't mean that they're not familiar with things at all, or, different circumstances. So that's not a bad question to ask, but it's one of multiple things that I would find out about who you're talking to. And if somebody has a presentation ready for you and they're going to work for your business, then that already is pretty telling to you too, versus somebody that just says, oh yeah, I was tagged on Facebook, work with me.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And then, so last question on the real estate side of things would be, I think we have a lot of employers, business owners listening, and obviously a huge part of workforce and finding people to live and work here is the live part, which is housing. How can employers support their new candidates, support their new employees in that journey? Because obviously, especially when you're trying to get people from outside of the region to move here to take a job, housing is a huge issue.
It is a huge issue. And we do have quite a few companies that do a good job in trying to help facilitate that, where they have some company-owned housing that can be short-term to bridge the gap, or they try and facilitate a rental. We do have a lot of companies that we're affiliated with at the Mass Yellow Group through their relocation department. And so there's extra criteria for agents to be part of that program to help relocate these folks. But just, being integrated in the community, making those relationships, and, talking with realtors, talking with landlords, seeing what's available. But you're absolutely right. It's a key piece that goes hand in hand with our shortage of housing, and then also the job market that we have here and what's available and what the pay scale is.
Perfect. So Jill, let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about what a good weekend looks like for you.
Okay.
Your kids are preteens, teens.
Yep.
You guys live in Swansea. What do you do on a good weekend?
So a good weekend for me, oftentimes I, of course, have to work to some degree on a weekend, which is not a bad thing, but certainly getting that family time in there is a key piece. And for me, as long as I am at least getting outside, that's a good thing. And sadly, for some, they might think that it's a sad thing, but doing some stuff around my house and checking off those projects in that to-do list is pretty satisfying to me. In the area, one of the things that we've always liked to do for the winter time, as great as the Keene area is with doing activities, like we've got the Ice and Snow Festival coming up and various things. You can go to the Colonial and grab a show, but we really love the Caterpillar Lab over in Marlborough. If you have not been there, I highly recommend it for children of all ages. They're fantastic. And you would think that the winter is not a great time to visit because there's not a ton of caterpillar, moth, butterfly activity, but you would be incorrect. It's fantastic. The last time we went there, my kids got to dig through a rotted log, and we found a pseudoscorpion and had it under the magnifying glass, learned all about it. They had bugs and all sorts of things to keep you very entertained, and it's just a really underlooked, fun place in our area.
I have never heard of it. That's amazing. And that's in Marlborough?
It's right on the main drag in Marlborough, just as you're about to turn that corner before you intersect with 124.
Okay. I got to take the boys there. That sounds really, really fun. And what else are, like give me another secret, Jill Exel spot here and there you get around.
Secret. Oh, geez. Do I have any secrets? I always share all of my information, so I don't know what's a secret. The popular ones are, of course, Granite Gorge, and we're not far from any ski resort.
Where do you go for food?
Oh my God, I go everywhere. I am definitely like a food-driven person. I love to check out various restaurants, and It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. A lot of my meetings are at various restaurants and coffee shops and things. And so I'm very fortunate that I get to try a lot of different places all over the county. And I have 807 restaurants running through my mind right now. And it's lunch hour and now I'm hungry.
I have to say, like, on restaurants, I'm just very excited about all the changes happening to, like, the restaurant scene right now. Like, there's a lot of movement.
There really is. Yep.
And I think that should be fun.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good variety of stuff that we have already, but also coming. And I will try anywhere. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Just before we end, can you, give us your contact information? How can people reach you if they really need to know where the Caterpillar Lab is, or if they want to buy a house?
Yep. Reach out anytime. So my telephone number is 603-762-2381. And a good email address for me is jill@realty603.com, JILL at REALTY603.com. And I spell that just because I've had some people not know that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Well, that was a great conversation. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a nice review wherever you're listening to this. It really means the world. And our episodes drop every Friday, so stay tuned for more insightful chats from It's Freitag.